The DNC stripped Iowa of its leadoff status in the Democratic nomination calendar earlier this month. But the Hawkeye State still leads the way for the GOP in determining its presidential candidate for 2024. This comes as 2024 Republican presidential contenders begin to put Iowa into focus. Nikki Haley and Tim Scott each visited the state earlier this week, while Mike Pence and Asa Hutchinson made appearances last week. Iowa GOP Chairman Jeff Kaufmann joins us now. Jeff, it's great to see you.
Great to be here.
So your state is the hot place to be this month. I wonder, of all those people we just rattled off, who's getting the most attention?
I'm so proud of this state. And if the national Democrats would give them a chance, our Iowa Democrats would be just as enthusiastic too. But at every gathering, it is absolute enthusiasm. Crowd expectations are beyond. Iowans are used to kicking the tires. They're used to going to events. They're used to the questions. Right now, it's just an enthusiasm that we're going to start here in the Hawkeye State, and we're going to do the country proud. We're not going to pick the presidential candidate, but we're going to winnow the field, and we're going to look at everyone carefully.
Do you think that enthusiasm can translate into one of those people, maybe someone else who's not named Donald Trump, actually winning? Or are Republicans in your state already dedicated to the former president?
Certainly, the president has a great deal of admirers here in this state. Does that translate into caucus votes? We will see on the evening of caucus. But I can tell you this. Iowans are going to give everyone a chance to be heard. The party itself and the party structure is going to be neutral. We have taken a public pledge for that. And ultimately, when it's all said and done, there's no better place than a state of a little over 3 million with reasonable media markets and an opportunity to visit every county. The people are going to have a say. But certainly, President Trump is well known here. He is going to have a chance to make his case to be president again. But all of those other contenders are going to be making their case as well and are as we speak.
Well, I want to talk about someone who is not doing that and, in fact, has not even formally announced that he plans to run. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Do you think that he's waiting too long? Does someone need to get in right now, or is May, June okay to come to Iowa and make their case?
There's always a strategy about timing, of course. There are some that want to get in immediately. Ultimately, people are going to have to decide whether to get in or not in terms of qualifying for debates. But, remember Fred Thompson. He waited quite a while to get in, created a stir. There are others that have gotten in very, very early. And obviously, the president jumped in very early and left really little to the imagination in terms of what his intentions were even before that. I think it's a strategic decision. I'm not sensing that its time is now. I think as long as people are talking about you, as long as they're a buzz, if they're talking about you in the Hawkeye State, sometimes that's as good as being in the Hawkeye State. But I want them all here.
Do you hear people talking about DeSantis?
I do. I am just stunned, to be honest with you, the amount of people that are showing up at these events. We've had events over on the Mississippi area that have been sold out. They were bringing in chairs. I've got people from last night that have been calling me today about Tim Scott. I have individuals that one lady called me last night, and she texted me and said, "I met Nikki Haley. It's been wonderful. She's better than I ever expected." There are folks wondering when Governor DeSantis is going to be here. When is Donald Trump going to be here? The Hawkeye State is ready to be excited, and we are going to do our job, and we're going to give everybody a chance here.
Do you think Donald Trump should go? I mean, despite the fact that he already has, strong support there.
I have yet to find a person that has been successful in presidential politics that did not come to Iowa. Every candidate, if there's any lesson whatsoever that needs to be heard, if you look at history all the way back to the 1970s, is beware of skipping Iowa. Ultimately, that's going to get you, whether it be in the caucus here in Iowa, during the entire primary process, or in the general election. The Hawkeye State is a state that you do not want to miss. In terms of when you come into the state, again, that's a strategic decision. and I'll let that up to the well-informed analyzers and consultants.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I do have a quick question about Iowa Democrats. And I wonder if you are talking to them, trying to encourage them to fight with the DNC to keep their place since the DNC has decided to boot them out of that top spot.
It is the one truly bipartisan part of my job. I stand 100% with the Iowa Democrats on this. They were set up in 2020. They were handed an app by the DNC that was bound to fail. I was there. I knew how ready they were. Now this curveball that was thrown to them, we all know what's going on with South Carolina. Okay, Bernie Sanders could beat Joe Biden in an Iowa Democratic caucus. AOC could beat Joe Biden in an Iowa Democratic caucus. We all know that Joe Biden's not coming here because he can't win. We all know that he's starting out in South Carolina because the poor soul needs some help. Can you even imagine what people would say about the Republican Party if we were changing an entire system just to help one candidate? No, I am giving the Iowa Democrats every bit of support. I'm offering to work with them when we can on everything from reporting to an app. I am behind them 100%, and shame on the DNC for thumbing their nose at the entire Midwest, because Michigan isn't the Midwest. It's Detroit and rural area. Right now, the Midwest does not have an option in our early process.
All right, we'll have to leave it there, Jeff Kaufmann. Right, gotcha. We will have to leave it there, but we look forward to talking to you a lot in the next year and a half. Thanks a lot, Jeff.
My pleasure.